Welcome everyone, and
This meeting is being recorded.
We're happy that you can join us today. While we wait for the rest of the participants to join this webinar, please feel free to tell us where you are located right now. Where are you joining us from? By using the Menti code that you can see on the screen, or using the QR code as well. We would like to know where you are and who is joining us today. We will give you a couple of minutes to do that. So we're very excited to see that you're joining us from different parts of the world. Okay, Asia, Europe, Africa, Eurasia, North America, Central America, South America. That's really great. Keep going. We have a lot of participants today, and we want to fill up that map. Wonderful. Libya, South Sudan, Syria, my goodness. Ethiopia, Yemen. Myanmar, Switzerland. So this will be a very, very participatory event. We will have different experiences from different parts of the world, and we're very excited to have you. Okay, so thank you so much. And so we have representation from different parts of the world, which is really nice. And Ayuba will be very pleased to have this exchange of experiences and discussion with this very important topic today. So today, we will be, I'm joined by my colleague, Anabela Sanchez, and together we will facilitate this session. Anabela, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Nora, thank you, and welcome everybody. It's so good to see so many people from several parts of the world. I am Anabela Sanchez. I live in Guatemala in Central America, and I have been working as technical advisor on supply chain management, both in the public sector, the private sector, and emergency situations, also strengthening health systems, especially in Latin America and other parts of the world. So very nice to be with you today. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you, Anabela. And I'm Nora Quesada. I'm a senior technical advisor at JSI, and I work in international development for several years now, and in the fields of reproductive health, system strengthening, supply chain capacity building in Latin America, Asia and Africa. And I'm sending greetings from Bogota, Colombia, where I'm based. So we're happy to have you with us today and look forward to a very participatory discussion. We are also honored to have and welcome Ayuba Nuhu Tarfa, currently working for MSF Switzerland in Borno State, Nigeria. Ayuba, welcome, and would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you very much. I am by name pharmacist Ayuba Nuhu Tarfa, a graduate of University of Maiduguri, Borno State to be specific, and a current enrolled student of University of Global Health Equity in Rwanda, pursuing Masters of Science in Global Health Delivery. I currently work as the project pharmacy manager with Médecins and Frontières Switzerland here in Nigeria for Borno and Bauchi activity respectively. I am responsible for the management of the pharmaceutical and medical commodities, and as well nutritional therapeutic foods for the activities here in Nigeria. Nice to meet you all, and it's a pleasure to be part of this webinar.
Thank you, Ayuba. Thank you so much for your time. We're very excited to have you today and very expectant for what you are going to share with us in the next few minutes. So back to you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Nora. So a few logistics before we start. As always, please introduce yourselves. I have seen that some of you have already greeted one another. Use the chat button on the screen to do that. We are going to also have a conversation with Ayuba, and while we do that, we invite you to use the Q&A button for questions, comments, and any suggestions, recommendations for the topic that we are going to discuss today, okay? So before we start, we would also, as always, would like to remind the audience that these activities possible thanks to the support of the USAID Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance Office, which we help introduce. JSI is the implementer of the capacity building program for humanitarian organizations to improve the supply chain management in the middle of emergencies and disaster settings. We really are very committed to the objectives of this project because we help develop materials that explore new approaches, lessons learned on delivering pharmaceuticals in the middle of crisis. We also conduct capacity building activities like a blended learning course. We know that Ayuba was part of that course, and we are in several ongoing courses right now through the end of the year. We know that there are students in the audience as well. And we also like sharing at the global and at the country levels case studies of practices and tools that organizations do. So if you think you have any experience or tool that you can share with the community, please contact us in the contact emails that we will give at the end of the webinar. We also support partners in improving the strategic approach of supply chain management of pharmaceuticals in the humanitarian sector. The sessions for today are three. The first one is to review a market survey process for pharmaceuticals and medical devices. Also to share a hands-on experience developing those surveys to improve the availability of products in the local market. That is why we have the honor of having Ayuba with us today. And we're also going to identify challenges and solutions during those processes to develop market surveys. So back to you, Nora.
Thank you, Annabella. So to give some context to the discussion today, usually when we're trying to procure from local suppliers, it's very important to think about that when a crisis hits a community and procuring supplies from international suppliers could take a long time, it's very important to find solutions in the local market. However, local suppliers can have a number of challenges in filling an emergency request when an organization on the ground needs to respond quickly to an emergency. Some of the challenges that they face are, for example, they have sometimes legal suits for breaching contracts in the past. So their reputation is damaged. They don't have enough supplies in stock to respond to the crisis in the local market. They don't have a good reputation, as I said, because they have provided substandard quality products in the past. They don't offer the equivalent pharmaceuticals that the organizations need. They don't have the legal accreditation to obtain certain groups of health supplies, and they require pre-qualification based on international standards to allow donors to use the funds for the humanitarian organizations to procure from these local suppliers at the country level. So these are the difficulties that sometimes they face. Why to do market surveys? Next slide, please. Well, basically, it's important to identify the suppliers in the local market because of the factors that I just mentioned. Because when you try to respond to a crisis, you need to have the supplies as soon as possible in order to deliver them to the communities. Also to explore the capacity of the local suppliers to provide pharmaceuticals and medical supplies. And how important it is to pre-select and shortlist suppliers to become part of a list of pre-qualified suppliers. But the difficulty is, okay, how should we do it and who should do it? And also, when we talk about, okay, the importance of having pre-qualified suppliers, but how can we do that? Do we do it based on international standards, based on internal organizational standards, or based on external recommended standards, or based on other standards that are not listed here? So this is the topic that Ayuba will cover today based on his experience. And of course, we're looking forward to having you all share your own experience and have this exchange or this conversation with Ayuba as well. Next slide, please. So before starting our conversation with Ayuba, please answer the following question. Have you done a market survey before? The next question, Annabella. Okay, using the Menti website and the same code, please let us know if you have done a market survey before. Okay, some of you have, okay. Keep going. We want to know what experience the audience has in doing market surveys. Okay. Okay, I can see in the chat that people say yes, others say no. Okay, maybe we're even here, Ayuba. I mean, some people maybe have the participants have done or participated in a market survey and hasn't participated in a market survey. Okay, so I would say that this is a good. We get an idea now on who, maybe 50-50% have participated in a market survey. So, okay, let's go back to the presentation. Thank you so much. Okay, so Ayuba, to start the conversation, please give us an overview of MSF in Nigeria and your work in Borno and Bauchi states, and why you think market surveys are important in humanitarian assistance, in humanitarian settings.
Thank you, Nora, for this wonderful question. As a matter of overview of our activities in Borno and Bauchi respectively, As a medical non-profit organization, we bring medical humanitarian assistance to victims of conflict, natural disasters, epidemics, and healthcare exclusions. Our major activities range from IPD pediatric, nutritional intervention, which is categorized into ITFC, ATFC. We are also involved in HIV and TB screening, and as well mental health, because one of the key challenge with victims of armed conflicts is the mental health issues. So these are the major things we do in Borno and Bauchi respectively. Next slide, please. So talking about why we carry out market survey, there are so many numerous reasons as to why we carry out market surveys, but of key interest are just these three that I'm going to talk about. We carry out market survey in order to identify local suppliers, these local suppliers that have capacity and they meet up with the requirement of good manufacturing practices, good storage practice, and as well the national regulatory guidelines. Not just that, we also carry out market survey in order to locally source for products that otherwise have importation restrictions. Like in Nigeria, there are a lot of items that are under the restriction for importation here by the customs. So if you're running an activity without those items, a lot of items may under the restriction list are critical items needed for the activities. So therefore you must, as an organization, in order to ensure the success and then to meet the health need of these beneficiaries, for them to have an equitable healthcare delivery, you must locally source for those products. Not just that, also the reason for carrying out market survey is to address the lengthy lead times, because when you go for international importation, at the end of the day, you end up having long lead time, especially like during this corona pandemic. We encountered a lot of problems with long lead time, and then that's also hampered on the shelf life of the product as well. So by addressing the lead time, it tends to address also issues with respect to stock outs. Thank you.
Yeah, these
Next
are
slide.
very, very important, I would say, reasons why market surveys are necessary or needed. But okay, when we talk about market surveys, we need to think about the process and the steps that you need to follow. So in your experience, what are the key steps and considerations when carrying out a market survey? For example, what skills are needed, who participates, and how do you conduct the survey?
Thank you, Nora, for your questions. So it is very important for you to list out the various steps you're going to involve in while carrying out market surveys. So these steps to carry out, it is very key and important that you form a survey team. This survey team should comprise of the pharmacy team, the logistic team, the medical team, and as well the finance team. So when you have your team, a team that shares a common goal, it goes a long way, because for you to have a team that do not share a common goal, at the end of the day, you will not end up achieving the sets or targeted objectives you intend doing for the market survey. So after set formation of your survey team, it is important for you to set a goal. And this goal should be set based on what the SMART goal principle. SMART in what sense? This goal should be specific, it should be measurable, it should be achievable, it should be realistic, and as well, it should be time bound. So when you are able to set those goals, it goes a long way in you achieving your targeted objectives. And also, part of the step is to reach out to implementing partners, because definitely there must be some implementing partners who had experience of market surveys. So learning from people's mistakes saves time and it saves cost. So when you're able to reach out to them, you will get to know some of the successes they've recorded and some of the challenges they've encountered. This way, it will help you in mitigating, in saving cost, and in saving time as well. because it will provide you with an avenue to avoid some of these challenges they faced. Not just that, also, it is very key and important that you get the pre-qualified suppliers list from renowned organizations like QAMED, because I believe, especially when I was working with an organization that benefited from BHA fund, there is this farmer working group that work towards, should I say, engaging QAMED for her pre-qualification. So if you are able to get, the reports from these QAMEDs, it will guide you as to what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Those pre-qualified suppliers, they have already identified, and those targeted populations for you to be able to carry out your mapping. So not just that, also, after getting all these lists, then it is important for you to develop your own list. How you're going to go about it. Whom are you going to invite or send out, expression of interest to? It is from all those lists gathered from implementing partners and as well QAMED or WHO that it will guide you to select those persons or those suppliers you plan to visit. Next slide. So part of continuation is, after getting your lists, those that you have shortlisted for the planned visit, it is expected, ideally, for you to make the whole thing transparent. You publish, because aside those lists, there might be other suppliers that might be interested in participating in the survey assessment. So what you need to do is, when you now publish in the media outlet, send invitations for expression of interest, your reasons for the visit, you list out items you are interested in pre-qualifying, then as well you request for documents, regulatory document, product data, information, staff strength. Also, you need to state dates you plan for the visit and how long this exercise is going to take you. More also, it is important that these interested suppliers, they are expected to fill in and return the attached letter of expressing their interest to participate, plus the dossiers, that's the product document that is needed as well. So after that stage, there is need for you, after getting a response from those suppliers, it is very key and important that you tend to screen and assess those submitted product dossiers for completeness, and then also seeing if they actually meet up, the standard operating procedures. The suppliers with complete documents then are contacted, because it is out of your assessment and screening of those documents, you now further shortlist those that you should visit, because it is not all at the end of the day that will have complete documents. So your shortlisting will help you now, give you guide as to whom and where you're going. So after getting those lists, another thing of interest is your inspection sites. It is important for you, for the inspections of sites of manufacturer of active pharmaceutical ingredients, the finished products, and laboratories. This helps you in assessing if the suppliers comply with the good manufacturing practices. Next slide. So in continuation, so after getting to carry out your inspection of the sites, samples of finished products are independently analyzed. You need to collect samples from those suppliers, for manufacturers, for you to see if the quality assurance is valid. Because a lot of times you end up seeing, products that do not meet the British Pharmacopoeia standard. The active ingredient, it is not as specified by British Pharmacopoeia, because here in Nigeria we pay more attention to British Pharmacopoeia standard. So samples are now taken to NAFDAC. When you take those samples to NAFDAC here in Nigeria, they are National Agency for Food and Drug Administrative and Control. They are responsible for assessing the quality, the standard of products, and then if it is valid or if it is good or safe for consumption by patients. So when you take it there, it will help to see if it conforms with the British pharmacopoeia standard. So after getting that, this is an independent assessment. It is the cost will be on the organization. So when you do that, the report you get from NAFDAC will help you further reevaluate and then conclude on your draft of report. So this evaluation report is then communicated to the suppliers you have visited, because it will help them in knowing where they are deficient, some of the challenges they are having, and with recommendation of how they should improve further. Because the essence of this pre-qualification is not just to identify those that are incompetent, but rather to also ensure that you give them a feedback so that going forward, they will be able to, address some of those challenges, and then they can, at a later time, go back to the pool again of those pre-qualified suppliers. So after getting your report, a final draft of these pre-qualified suppliers and the list of pre-qualified product should be shared to the management, because it is expected at the end of your assessment, you need to send back a feedback so that a decision making can be taken. So you send the reports to your management, because it is the management that will later finally validate and then give a go ahead if those pre-qualified local suppliers can be patronized or not. So you need also to send later to those that are successful, for you to intimate them, letting them know that, okay, you're successful for this assessment, and going forward, there are possibilities that we will engage you in supplying our products, because it is difficult for you to find a supplier that can meet up 100% of those products you are in need of. But then you will have to, based on the list of items you've pre-qualified, you send them the list per supplier or company. So you intimate them and let them know that, okay, these are the list of items we've pre-qualified in your own company. So these are possible items that we will now request going forward. Next slide. So talking about list of items that were pre-qualified in our market survey, if you go back to our reasons, part of the reasons we stated earlier on with respect to why we carry out market survey, it was stated that part of the reason was we carried out the market survey in order to address, the availability, the shortage of items that are restricted for importation here in Nigeria. So if you go by our list here, you end up seeing the likes of paracetamol, metronidazole, ferrous and folic acid combination, folic acid infusions. This makes about more 80% of the list of restricted items for importation. So the market survey has gone a long way in addressing this challenge, because being able to source the likes of paracetamol, metronidazole, ferrous and folic acid infusions, it has addressed, these restriction or importation issue. Next slide. So, key considerations. The major thing is, like in the current organization where I currently work, the survey is not carried out by us. Rather, there are specific departments known as the intersectional pharmacists. They are responsible for carrying out these market survey. They are responsible for coordinating the pharma working group here in Nigeria for all the MSF sections. So, and it is good to note that all local procurement must be approved and validated at the HQ level before this is being carried out. So this exercise actually, it's lengthy and is demanding. The reason why I say it's lengthy is because it took us a period of 2 months for us to complete this exercise. So you can imagine where an organization individually decides to carry out that. So what it means is your activity is halted for that period of time till you are able to get things done. So you can imagine 2 months is not an easy task. So when planning an inspection, of the supplier, please, you should consider the outcome of previous COMET inspections and assessment, because from our previous steps to consider, we said it is important to contact renowned organizations like COMET and WHO. So having their reports will help you know the outcome of their previous inspections and assessment. Not just that, also, you need to look at the number of quality of defects, talking about complaints from patients, talking about recalls. Do they have a recall mechanism in place? Because there are a lot of times where you see products tend up to have adverse drug reaction in the field. So a supplier who doesn't have a good recall mechanism, it's pose a threat to the patient, because at the end of the day, if you are not able to recall those items, there might be a lot of problems, a lot of adverse drug reaction being recorded on the field. So part of another thing to consider while planning is major changes to building processes, equipment, and key personnel, because it is important from the report, the dossier you got from the suppliers. Sometimes there might be changes before your planned visit. So it is important to pay attention to some of those processes, some of the change in personnel as well, because there might be changes along the line. There might be, maybe a staff resigning, joining another organization, or maybe a demise of a staff or so. So is there replacement? Is there a change in buildings? Things like that. So these are the major three things when you are planning for inspection you need to consider. Next slide. So at the end of the survey assessments, we were able, before we concluded, we were able to shortlist 10 suppliers. But at the end of the day, after drafting our reports and evaluation, we ended up with 5 pre-qualified valid suppliers. So you can see the importance of carrying out this assessment, because if at all there wasn't this assessment, at the end of the day, we might end up, contacting the other remaining 5 that are not having the capacity, and as well, they wouldn't have identified their weaknesses, and then for them to address. The importance is one, the safety. We have gone a long way in addressing, safety issue on our patient, and as well, we have given feedback to those suppliers who were not shortlisted, because it will help them in order to rectify those challenges and then, improve and build their capacity further.
Great. Wow. Ayuba, you have walked us through these different steps and in a very comprehensive way, but probably things were not as smooth as they seem to be in a step-by-step process. So what were the challenges that you faced when you carry out this market survey?
Thank you very much, Nora. Next slide, please. There were numerous challenges that were encountered. However, we have, I only listed out 2 major challenges. The first challenge was information sharing by the suppliers, which was very poor. There is the fear of the information obtained from them, which might be published or shared with their market competitors. They fear, if at all, what we are going to get from them will be, leaked out or given to their market competitors. That was a major challenge. So if at all you can, convince them, let them understand, ensure the confidentiality, build their trust that you're going to be confidential about the information you get from them, and as well, these conflict of interest document that you share with them and then you sign, ensuring that you're going to protect every information you get from them. I think that will go a long way in addressing this problem. Also, lack of willingness to participate in the pre-qualification process by the suppliers. the major challenge was a lot of suppliers tend to complain and say there are visitations by various numerous organizations coming to them, want to, carry out market survey. At the end of the day, it's end up, altering their plans for the year. So they might end up having like in a year, having a visit of more than like 10 organizations coming independently wanting to carry out that. So that hamper with their activities. So that is one of the major, they are exhausted, they get tired of these processes, and they don't show interest in participating. So because it took us 2 months to successfully complete this task, it is advisable a single joint assessment by pharma coordination, because it is important that each, especially let me make emphasis on this for those benefiting from the BHA fund, not just the BHA fund. Within a country, it is good if there can be a pharma working group. This will help in information sharing. It will help in decision making, because the pharma coordination will help partners in addressing so many things. Because even when there are shortage, stock out of items, I believe during my experience back then, it has helped because we share information. We also tend to help each other, each partners, in when an organization is in their need of an item. So that will save cost and address some of the challenges.
Wow,
Next slide.
very, very interesting what you're saying, Ayuba, because you're talking about the challenges, but also at the same time, some of the solutions and recommendations. So can you give us some conclusions and recommendations based on your experience with market surveys?
Thank you, Nora. My conclusion would be that market survey provided information about local suppliers with capacity and a list of selected suppliers. Timely planning and sharing of forecasted need will guide the suppliers in the purchase of raw materials and production. The reason being that a lot of these suppliers, they do not have the needed quantities on ground. So for them to be able to procure these raw materials, it is important that organizations, while carrying out, plan of activity for the year, while doing forecasting and quantification, it is important that organizations should involve these suppliers, these pre-qualified suppliers, so that they will know, they will have a prior knowledge of what they should be expecting, at what time they should be producing what, and then at what quantity they should be producing. Local procurement has indeed addressed lead time delay, which this is part of the reason why we said the importance of carrying out the market survey. It has addressed this lead time delay and stock out of pharmaceuticals, examples of paracetamol, metronidazole, folic acid, dextrose, and Ringer's lactate. These are part of items that are restricted for importation. So you see, it has stated the importance of carrying out this local survey, market survey.
Yeah, this last point is very important. As you mentioned, why market surveys are important. It's when you have restrictions on importation, which is very good. So what are some of the recommendations that you can give to the audience, Ayuba?
Thank you, Nora. My recommendation to the audience will be that be involved. Like I said earlier, during the supply planning, this will give them a guide as what they should, the raw materials they should be able to procure. Because in Nigeria here, a lot of times we tend to procure these local, we tend to procure these raw materials, import them into the country. So having to involve them in these supply planning will give them a guide on the quantity they should import and what quantity they should manufacture. Organizations with limited or no resources for their own market survey can contact agencies like QUAMED or WHO for their evaluation of local suppliers. There are instances, like in the organization where I currently work, there is a specific department who carry out that. But there are possibilities where organizations, local, maybe community-based organizations that cannot or do not have the resources to have a specific department for that task, they can rely on informations gotten from the likes of COMED or WHO for their local suppliers. Local suppliers also need support with funds to help them boost their production capacity and also to meet the current good manufacturing practices standards. Because a lot of times it is not that they don't have the technical know-how, but rather it is the financial constraint. So if organizations can be supported, if local suppliers can be supported, with funds, with loans, it will go a long way to build their capacity, and they will be able to meet up these current good manufacturing practices standard. So, but the last recommendation will be both international and local organizations should have this flexibility of patronizing the local suppliers. Without patronage, at the end of the day, they will produce goods or products that will not be consumed, and that will be a loss. So in order to build their capacity, in order to ensure they continue in business, it will be good for both international and local organizations to patronize them, buy goods from them, pre-qualify them and buy goods from them. That way they will even do better and give us a better result. And this will go a long way in addressing our challenges with stock out, long lead time, constraint with importation restrictions, and then, availability of good product have safety and are efficacious. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you so much, Ayuba, for all your recommendations and conclusions, and also the experience that you're sharing with us. And there are a lot of questions. This topic is of interest to many of the participants, of course. And before we move to the Q&A session, I would like to ask the last question on Menti. Why do you think market surveys can facilitate the procurement of pharmaceuticals from local suppliers? I think Ayuba has covered a lot of the reasons why market surveys are important in the local market. But if you can give us your view on why you think they can facilitate procurement of pharmaceuticals from local suppliers, please give us your responses here.
Okay, thank you very much for this question.
Yes, and I think that we give the participants the chance as well, Ayuba, to respond, to see what they think about that after your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for such a wonderful question. Going back to our reasons for taking market survey, it tends to save costs and also address challenges with long lead time, challenges with restriction on importation, and as well it brings about the availability of products locally. So when you are able to do that, you tend to get a better and quality drugs that meets the standard and as well are efficacious for the health needs of our targeted population.
Mm-hmm. And also it boosts the local economy as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And here we're looking at these different responses, Ayuba, that it improves quality, minimizes risk, save time, it saves cost, support local economy, as we said, it's more cost effective, it allows better planning, save time, better prices, and so on. So yeah, so there are many benefits, and there are many good things that come out of market surveys and in pre-qualifying local suppliers. So, okay, so now we will move on to the Q&A session that my colleague Annabella will facilitate. Thank you so much, Ayuba. So stay tuned because there are a lot of questions coming in from all the participants. So you will be very busy in the next few minutes.
Thank you, Nora.
You are right, Nora. I have been following up the Q&A button, and we're gonna try our best in the few minutes to take most of the questions. It's always a challenge during these webinars, but don't worry if we are not able due to time to answer all of your questions. What we do, if you are visiting us for the first time, what we do is we gather all the questions, we respond them, and we share with you a table with all the questions and resources, all right? So I'm gonna start with Macarena. Thank you for your questions. You have several ones. So I'm gonna start by asking Ayuba. Let me see if I can get a hold of some of the questions. Macarena, a question was, could anyone clarify what the process is for WHO pre-qualification of suppliers? Is it more suppliers used by WHO in a certain country?
Hello, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat yourself, please?
Could anyone clarify what the process is for WHO pre-qualification of suppliers? Is it more suppliers used by WHO in a certain country? And anyone in the audience that would like to respond as well, you can ask for, raise your hand and we'll give you the mic. But do you have any comment on that?
I want to clearly understand the question, because if it was typed, maybe I would have
Okay,
clarity.
Macarena, would you like to?
Can you rephrase the question, please? Can you rephrase the question?
I think Macarena is interested in learning more about the process to pre-qualify with WHO standards. What I would say is that we're in fact in the resources page that we will share at the end, we have a series of WHO references that you can look at. So that would be part of the answer. And Macarena also has another question. Ayuba, I understand that QAMED, that's what she says, recommends suppliers based on their compliance to GDP. But what about the requalification of sources in a supplier that recommends from QAMED, for example?
Maybe this question I will have to respond to her later and share it.
Okay.
Except where there is anybody with a response here. Yeah.
Yes, and what I would only mention is that QAMED has a lot of experience conducting inspection, site visits, and also conducting market surveys. And they usually develop annual reports. And so that could be another reference. We are also going to expand the answer to that question. Yasser has also said, how do you assess the information management system for the potential suppliers? We know that there is management criteria that you analyze when you visit the supplier, Ayuba. So the question is, how do you assess the information management system for the potential suppliers?
Thank you very much. For us, what actually happened, what we did was to get access, because as an organization, you need to subscribe with QAMED. If you don't subscribe, you don't get access to those information. So based on, we had our dependence based on the shared information, the shared assessment they give. So our database was gotten or obtained from the shared report of QAMED, and as well visiting other partners whom have had a prior experience of the pre-qualification assessment as well. So our database was obtained from those ones specifically.
Okay, thank you, Ayuba. there are so many questions. Olo Gudundu, thank you for your question. The question is, if you are a logistics manager in an organization and your organization is does not have a professional pharmacist, what do you do? How can you do a market survey? And that relates also to, I think Nora mentioned, what are the skills? What are the capacity to
Yes.
carry out the market surveys? And what happens if you don't have the skills?
Thank you very much for such a question. In the first place, you as an organization, you should have a pharmacist in your mission, because pharmacists, they are the drug lords. So in the first place, you should be having a pharmacist in your project. So notwithstanding, where there are no technical skills for that, it is open and okay for you to rely on informations or assessments carried out by either WHO or Quamed. So it is good for you to rely on them. So having access to their information will give you a guide on who to contact, those local suppliers that you can buy products from. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayuba. Wasama says that is it necessary to analyze finished products whenever we have an active BHA grant, or is this only applicable in certain countries, regions?
Thank you very much. Now it depends on the national regulatory practices of the country where you are in. In Nigeria, it is expected that, in fact, even items that you tend to import into the country, it is very key and important that you take samples. NAFDAC takes samples. You know, even before releasing those items, they will have to carry out the quality assurance to assess it and see if it is okay, safe for the patient use. So now it depends on the national regulation of that your country. But I believe each country should have that. So finished products, before they are being used, for you to guarantee that it is safe, you know, it is important that you carry out their quality assurance of randomly selected samples of finished product.
Yes, I agree, Ayuba, and I would also say that this question relates to having a quality assurance process in place.
Yes.
Because you need to protect the quality of the products, not only when you're procuring the items, but also when you are delivering them to the population in need. Yeah, so that's what you're saying. Thank you, Ayuba. There is a more technical specific question regarding the process. Sadiq, thank you for your question. It says regarding sending sample to regulatory authority, if the manufacturer is registered and licensed by the regulatory authority and having a valid GMP certificate, still the sample should be sent to the same regulatory authority to analyze, and we will not need manufacturer consent for that. That is the question. Additionally, with the analysis process will be quicker enough to meet organization timelines when responding to any emergency.
Okay, now it depends. It is important for a lot of times, if the list of local suppliers that you're having, for those that you feel do not meet, because every organization has a reputation. So this reputation is also a guide for you. So for organizations have a good reputation, you tend to access, during the local market survey, you tend to also ask for those customers. Who are their customers? Who are those patronizing them? So from there, you should be able to know the strength of the organization, their turnover. So the turnover will let you know if actually they are being highly patronized, what products are they being patronized for. So in emergency settings, you having a list of pre-qualified vendors from, let's say, Quamed or WHO, there is no need for you to carry it for another second assessment. because the list, now we're talking about, the emergency one, the target populations are in their need of these medications. So if there might be time delay at the end of the day, what we said, the local suppliers tend to address the lead time, the lengthy lead time, by taking it for sampling again. It will increase the lead time further again. So instead, we need to depend sometimes on the pre-qualification of the QAMED and then WHO. It will go a long way.
Yes. Ayuba, and I will make a small comment regarding, because there are several questions that are related to what happens if the emergency hits and there are no pre-qualified suppliers, and there are no suppliers locally that will substitute the ones that international suppliers do while the emergency hits. So I mentioned in some of the responses that this is why the organizations need to prepare a risk management plan before the emergency, like an ongoing plan that will protect the system and the country and the population you serve, in order to have, pre-positioning supplies, not only analyzing the suppliers, but also the context of the country, how often floods happen, how often earthquake happens, and to have like a risk management and a contingency plan to avoid or to minimize that situation. What do you think?
Yeah, your comment is on point. It's good. I think this is what the strategy to adopt, basically. So it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Abdullah, in Afghanistan, if suppliers knows that they are only supplier, if a supplier knows that this is the only supplier qualified that the NGO must procure medicines from, they tend to increase the process as per their desires, and even neglecting in supplies because they know that they are the only source. It is rather a common, but have you ever experienced that? There is only one pre-qualified supplier, and
no,
okay, but that's a
I
new
have not experienced, because we pre-qualified 5 local sources.
And that will
Yes.
depend. Abdullah's point is very important because, you can do a market survey when you have several suppliers in country. If your market is small, then the chances are that you will have a very limited response anyway.
Yes.
So, but it is a very important question. Oscar is saying, if we respond to new crisis to a new area, chances are that we don't have previous actors operating in these areas where we can request for their assessment. Each organization to their own organizations, and often competes for the meager resources if available. I think Oscar points is that once you pre-qualify a supplier, there are several organizations, several humanitarian organizations that will have a demand for those products, and that supplier will not have the capacity to respond. So that is another. I would say it's rather a comment and a challenge than a question, but good to point it out. Okay, Ayuba. Jason is saying, thank you, Ayuba. I would love to hear how you decide which products from an asset supplier require sampling and testing, and what you request NAFDAC to test. The whole specification or just certain parameters to save resources and time. Jason, thank you for your question. He's a QAMED member.
Thank you very much for those. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Ayuba, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much for the selection of products, because what happened is the items, like for instance, getting to meet some of these suppliers, for those ones that tend to manufacture, they tend to give us product analysis. So this product analysis that they do share with us, it is based on this product analysis, because now from the product analysis, you tend to see, because their level of the percentage that you get to see of, of quality is what tend to raise concerns to you. It is based on those items that you select which you want to take for sampling, not necessarily all the products. It depends on the product dossier they share with you, and then you look at it, you assess it, and then perhaps you forward it to NAFDAC for NAFDAC to recheck, and then share the report with you.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Ayuba. I'm looking at the time, and we're almost ready to wrap up. So as I said, we're gonna take all your questions and we will respond by writing in the follow-up email that we always send to you all. So thank you for all your questions, and back to you, Nora, for the wrap up.
Thank you, Annabella and Ayuba. Maybe this topic merits a part 2 webinar. We'll think about it and let you all know. So some of the few suggestions based on the conversation with Ayuba and the discussion and the questions, some of the suggestions that we have, the next slide, please. If you're planning to conduct a market surveys, remember what Ayuba mentioned about this, the suppliers being overwhelmed by so many organizations trying to do a market survey. So it's very important to explore coordination and information sharing among the humanitarian organizations on the ground to exchange information about current pre-qualified suppliers. Also include training in conducting market surveys in strategic, operational, and financial plans, as well as the importance of strengthening the organizational capacity to monitor, to conduct, to follow the steps in carrying out market surveys. And it's very important, as Ayuba mentioned, to form a multidisciplinary pharma task force to do that. It's very important to continue using QAMED and WHO resources to guide market survey efforts, especially for those organizations that don't have a strong team or are too small to have a team that could conduct the market survey. So you should rely on QAMED and WHO for that. And continue to nurture trust and open communication among all stakeholders to carry out market surveys and to know and to be informed about pre-qualified local suppliers. Some of the resources that we can point out, next slide, please, are QAMED. There are many links that you can use to get the information that they produce, that they have. PFSCM, that has a quality assurance and management manual. Also, there are several quality assurance systems of pharmaceutical distributors by different organizations, and the QAMED 2021 report, which has a lot of the information that it's related to this topic as well. Well, we also invite you all to share any information, any resources that you may have. You can share it through the HCL website that we have as part of the support that the BHA capacity building project provides to the humanitarian assistance community of practice. And we thank you all for your attendance and for joining this webinar. And we thank BHA and USAID for allowing us to do this webinar and share this experience from Ayuba and MSF and other organizations. So thank you so much, Ayuba, for your insights, your experience, your time, and see you next time. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.